Now, as pretty much always in this course, I got another demo project which you find attached. And this is a very simple front-end JavaScript application that runs in the browser. The application itself is not too important. It's in the end just a form that can be submitted. But then we have some JavaScript code that handles the form submission. And to be precise, what we're doing here is we're extracting some data from the form with help of a function defined here in this posts.js file. Then we're using this extracted data to call savePost, which seems to return a promise. And that is this function, which then under the hood calls sendDataRequest, which is in the end this function that sends this data to some dummy backend, which does not exist. This URL won't work because it's not about building an actually working site, but it's about having a demo site, a demo project for which we can write tests. And this is the function that simulates that an HTTP request would be sent and its response would be parsed and handled. And then ultimately, we also catch potential errors and show an error message on the screen with help of another helper function, which is defined here in the DOM.js file, which simply adds a paragraph with an error message inside of it to the screen. Now again, as mentioned, the app itself is not too important. You could see it if you would run npm start and you then visit localhost 8080, but it would be a very ugly non-functional app because we have this fake backend, because as mentioned, it isn't about the app, it's about the tests we can write. And if you have a look at these various files, then you will see some files for which it will be relatively straightforward to write tests, and you will see other files for which it will be a bit more challenging. And of course, in this section, we're going to focus on the more challenging files because these are the parts where we can learn new things. Nonetheless, as a practice and as a refresher on what you already learned, definitely also first try to write some basic tests for some of the easier files and functions. Specifically, make sure that you write some tests for these two classes in errors.js and a test for this function here in validation.js. Write some tests that come to your mind for these different functions and classes. And in the next lecture, we're going to write some tests together before we then thereafter move on to the actual content of this section and to the more challenging parts.